In this day and age, we know how harmful plastics are to the environment. Kids learn about it in school, and we can't seem to avoid the Go Green movement. It's no lie that plastics can destroy ecosystems and hurt animals. But what might not be known is just how deep this destruction goes. It's much more than just saving the turtles. It's about saving all the living creatures on this planet collectively. Plastic lasts a long time. It won't be going away anytime soon. But we can't say the same about life on Earth. So, let's explore the impact of this man-made mess. Let's start off with a bit of a horrifying fact. Every year, 400 million tons of plastic are produced. And of these 400 million tons, 14 million tons end up in the ocean. Out of all the debris found in the ocean, 80% of it consists of plastic waste. And this isn't just found on the surface. It also sinks below the surface and gets mixed into the deep sea sediments. Plastic was invented way back in 1907, but it became mass-produced after the Second World War. The 1960s and 70s saw a rise in consumer demand for this new synthetic and cheap material. But since it isn't all too durable, it easily gets tossed out. Litter consisting of plastic is especially dangerous, as it can end up lost in the natural habitats of our world. There are two types of plastic waste to be aware of. That is the microplastics and the macroplastics. Macroplastics are the plastics we see in litter. It includes plastic bags, packing material, and other types of plastics that we use in our day-to-day lives. Microplastics are the plastics that we can't see. They're like a hidden danger that has only gotten more severe in the past decades. Microplastics can come from broken off pieces of macroplastics. They also come from resin pellets used in the manufacturing of plastics, or microbeads, which are the tiny exfoliating beads that are often found in skincare products. The ramifications of this extend far past animals, but we'll get into that in a bit. First, how does it harm animals? There are actually a few ways this happens. Let's take a look at a few animals that have become major victims of this problem. Big predators such as tuna and sharks consuming smaller fish. But with plastic littering the sea, these smaller fish are consuming microplastics. When the tuna and sharks eat their meals, they're consuming the accumulation of all the microplastics that have been consumed by their prey. Sea turtles are another animal that get brought up a lot in the fight to reduce the use of single-use plastics. One huge threat to these animals are plastic straws. Sea turtles will see these plastic straws floating around in the ocean and think it looks like a delicious snack. Unfortunately, these straws can hurt an innocent sea turtle in more ways than one. First of all, plastics don't break down in the stomach of the sea turtle. So, an accumulation of these straws can become fatal fast. Another threat is the straw becoming lodged in the sea turtle's nose. Since sea turtles have passageways that connect their mouth and nose, much like a human, the food, or in this case plastic, that they consume can end up coming out of their nose. This obstructs their nose and can even cause major damage. And it doesn't stop at straws. The plastic rings that hold together 6 packs of canned drinks often become dangers for animals such as ducks. The rings will get caught around their necks, causing a panic. The more the ducks struggle to free themselves, the more damage it causes. Without the help of a human to free them, they can suffocate. As you can see, plastic is more than a nuisance for animals, it's oftentimes a death sentence. Marine life is especially affected by this threat. But how exactly does it get in the ocean? There are several ways that this can happen. Stormwater runoff is one way, and so is improper waste disposal. Illegal dumping, construction, sewer overflows, and countless other events lead to pollution like this. The horrifying truth is that unless the production and use of plastics is strictly limited, this issue will only continue to get worse. The issue of plastics harming marine life also affects us humans, and many aren't even aware of it. Remember the issue with the tuna fish? Humans also eat tuna fish, so all the microplastics that a tuna accumulates when they eat their prey is often then accumulated by the humans who eat the tuna. In 2022, a study showed that a single can of tuna can contain hundreds of microplastics. But it's all just tiny bits of plastic, right? Can't possibly do that much harm. Actually, it's a lot scarier than you think. Chemicals are involved in the production of such plastics, and these chemicals are known carcinogens. So, both humans and marine life are consuming debris that can cause internal damage. Plastics also pick up toxic contaminants from being in seawater for prolonged periods of time. So this causes even greater harm to sea life and, in turn, humans. Microplastics enter human bodies through food in more ways than one. The water used in the production of crops also contains microplastics, which get into the food we buy in the supermarkets. With microplastics being less than 5 millimeters by definition, this issue is literally hard to spot. Food safety is often regulated strictly, specifically when it comes to commercially produced foods. Microplastics can be transferred through food webs, so this issue seems to be quite contagious. Shellfish are a delicacy enjoyed all over the globe, but these kinds of seafood have been found to hold quite a lot of microplastics. Mollusks from Asia are especially large carriers of such microplastics. And because it doesn't affect the taste of the food, humans are now consuming alarming amounts of chemically treated plastics. To put things into perspective, here's a sobering fact. More than 100,000 marine mammals are killed each year due to plastics found in the oceans. This can come from entanglement or through ingestion. Fishing nets also do a lot of damage. Not only are some fish overfished due to commercial fishing, but broken and improperly discarded nets can wrap around coral reefs, preventing healthy growth. Unhealthy coral reefs affect a plethora of fish that live in them, including the triggerfish, clownfish, butterfly fish, and blue tang, just to name a few. Sea lions are another marine animal that are getting affected by this growing trend. Unlike many of the other animals we've learned about already, sea lions also face another type of fatal problem coming from plastics. These animals are being strangled by macroplastics. From plastic bags to those plastic six-pack rings, sea lions are getting tangled in them and choking to death. Many people have filmed sea lions being freed from these plastic traps, but more often than not, the sea lions are being released with large gashes across their throats, and these open wounds can become fatal as well. But sea lions are still a victim of the consumption of plastic too. Many sea lions have been found with ingested items such as bottle caps and plastic balloons. Plastic balloons are actually quite a big problem, as many people will release their balloons into the air. While it can be amusing to see your balloon fly off, never to be seen again, it's gonna eventually end up somewhere. And far too often these balloons will pop while high up in the air and eventually fall down into or around the oceans. This small piece of plastic then ends up looking like a small fish to a hungry animal. And again, the animals that swallow them are at risk of dying from starvation with a stomach full of plastic. And you might think that only the smaller sea life is affected, but this issue is indiscriminate. Large marine mammals such as whales are actually highly vulnerable to plastic entanglement. These large creatures are also ingesting these oceanic plastics at alarming rates. In 2019, a beached whale was found with 40 kilograms or nearly 90 pounds of plastic inside its stomach. Most of this plastic consisted of plastic bags, which often blow through the wind and end up in the ocean. This whale was still young, and it most likely died of starvation. When animals consume plastic, it doesn't get broken down the same way organic food does. It then sits in their stomach, causing them to feel perpetually full. This means the animal will no longer feed, and it perishes in a horrifying way. And this one young whale isn't the only victim. A trend of whales being found washed up on shores with stomachs full of plastic is on the rise. Another saddening story brings us to Scotland, where a juvenile sperm whale was found on a beach. When investigated, it was found to contain around 100 kilograms or about 220 pounds of plastic inside of its stomach. The plastic waste contained plastic bags, netting, tubing, cups, gloves, and bundles of rope. And this whale's stomach contents shows us just how much plastic waste is ending up in our oceans and affecting the wildlife that lives there. As we know now, plastic can easily be mistaken for food by animals. Plastic bags, for example, float around in the water like any other prey, And this movement and material looks appetizing to many different kinds of animals. Many animals, such as the leatherback turtle, may see these plastic bags as jellyfish, which is a staple food in their diet. Every ocean in the world, including the Arctic, has been found to contain microplastics. In keeping with the subject of sea turtles, all 7 species of this animal have been found to have microplastics in their gut. And it's not just affecting the animals that swim, it's affecting seabirds as well. Some seabirds are fortunately able to regurgitate plastics, but petrels cannot. They'll swoop in on plastics that float on the ocean's surface, often mistaking them for food, and then they'll consume these plastics. This can lead to either starvation or suffocation. Plastic in the ocean is tough to clean up. There's an estimated 50 trillion to 75 trillion pieces of microplastics in the ocean today. That much plastic would be impossible to get rid of, especially since some of it will eventually fall to the floor of the ocean where humans have trouble reaching it. There are programs in place to help clean up this mess though. Efforts have been put in to collect as much plastic waste as possible, but it doesn't stop there. It needs to be prevented as well, in order to cut down the amounts that animals and in turn humans are consuming. This requires intercepting litter that will run off into the oceans around the world. It's a big project, but that's exactly what big problems call for. Plastics are overall a terrible thing for all life on Earth. The effects outweigh any practical use the plastic may allow. By learning about what it can do to sea life as well as humans, we can learn to use alternatives that don't suffocate sea turtles.